My name is Alex Diggins. I'm the VP of Product here at ElastiFlow. Bunch of experience in network automation, lots of Gen AI, obviously, over the last couple of years, and then also security and compliance automation. So, yeah, as we mentioned, located in Denver here. If you want to hit me up on LinkedIn or email, I think my email address is also in the slide. I'm always happy to talk product, to talk specifically your questions, what kind of features you'd like to see if you're already customers, or if you're just curious about ElastiFlow. Obviously, our sales team definitely wants to speak to you, but if you just have some questions around like, hey, why do I see you using ElastiFlow from a product perspective? Always happy to talk about that as well. Before we dive in, I always like to start with a poll question because it just like lets us gauge on what kind of crowd we have today, what people get excited about. So yeah, and this is also specifically one that I'm curious about because I basically stole that from Seamus McGillicuddy at EMA Research. He does a lot of research in the NetSecOps space and how NetSecOps come together, and that's obviously like super on brand with what we're doing as well. And so he had this question in his latest NetSecOps report, which is in your cloud environments. To what degree are you getting insights into network traffic today? And basically, the question is geared towards like do you see no traffic at all? Do you see some of it? Are you actually analyzing traffic metadata through like packet headers, flows, and stuff like that? Or do you have full packet visibility through packet capture in your cloud environments? And the reason I'm asking this question specifically, I don't think we have in this slide. I should actually just pull it up. Is across his respondents in NetSecOps teams, there was like a 30% of people claimed they have full packet capture visibility on their cloud network data, which I just call BS on, to be honest. Like I hope when this gets published, he doesn't mind me saying that, but like that seems way too high for people to have full like virtual taps on all traffic going into their cloud environments. I just don't buy that. And I'm very glad that you guys are backing me up here on this poll because I see a lot of people selecting yeah, we can see some network traffic, but nothing else. And then we use some packet flow data that seems much more realistic. I'm gonna end the poll now. I think then you guys can see it as well. Yeah, oh, I need to click share results here. So basically we're looking at like, yeah, some people see when network is slowing, some people actually collecting flow logs, but no one does full packet capture. That's much closer to what I thought the answers would be. So yeah, thank you for giving me some validation on this poll. And yeah, that I couldn't just quite believe that it would be 30% in full packet capture. That makes sense to me. Cool. When we're looking at cloud visibility, there's the obvious challenge, right? That we're shifting from, or we have been shifting for a while now, from just on-prem data centers where everything is housed to cloud environments. I would say, if I'm allowed to say, the network teams have been lagging behind that trend a little bit. Like more of the compute and more of the SaaS services have been adopted than that was not quite the same pace on the network side, but nonetheless, we have a ton of different network services that are running in the cloud now. And some of the challenges that we see that basically like our some prospects that we get in our sales team, what they're responding to is like, hey, I've been using a tool for network visibility, but it doesn't support cloud flow logs in the same way that we would do on-prem flow logs. And that obviously causes issues in like having to swivel chair between different tools, having that data siloed in different databases because they're used by different tools. And that causes all kinds of network blind spots. That causes some security risks that might be missed because there might be some ML jobs running on this tool, some other jobs running on this tool, but there's no aggregated view of those. Yeah, those are some of the problems that we've encountered when people talk to us about cloud. And so the thing I want to stress here in this webinar is while we'll have a couple of cloud specific use cases, cloud flow logs are really just network flow logs from cloud services, right? So I mean, if you're seeing value in getting flow logs from your routers, from your switches, be it physical or virtual, you will also get that value from Cloudflow logs, right? And even more so if they are both accessible in the same dashboards, if they use the same data source, if you can run all of your anomaly detection and whatever else you're running on them, if you can run them on both of Cloudflow logs and on-prem flow logs, they just become that much more valuable. And yeah, so again, really want to focus on that misconception because a lot of what I see and when I talk to people about are you collecting Cloudflow logs right now, they're like, I don't really need that too much, or I don't like I can manage my egress cost, or I can see like roughly what traffic is going on. So I don't feel the need to do that specifically. But it definitely is not only for those cloud use cases. Any of the use cases that you might use your flow data for. I'm going to go through a couple of examples here in a second. They happen in the cloud as well, right? Especially if you use if you use more platform as a service or infrastructure as a service models, right, where you deploy most of the stuff, or maybe your application teams, your cloud teams, your DevOps teams, whoever is doing it, these deployments there. If some VNet, if some VPC is misconfigured, if the policies are not set correctly, right, and therefore there's no connectivity, it's more likely than not falls back on the network team. So the visibility there is absolutely critical to see what's right and what's wrong and what's going on in those cloud networks as well. And that extends to really all the use cases. And you if you've been in any webinar, you probably know the next couple of slides they're coming. But basically, if you're looking at why is NetFlow important? Why is SNMP polling and some traps, why isn't that enough? We're really looking at answering those questions. Why is a specific service slow on the application basis, right? Or on the service basis as well. What applications are consuming the most resources? Not just like, hey, my traffic, my throughput's at 98%, but which applications are actually using that bandwidth currently? And then which users are generating the most traffic. So being able to drill into those dashboards for performance availability, for capacity and cost planning, here very much the first use case here, which users or apps cause the most cloud egress cost. Obviously, that is very interesting, specifically when we're looking at cloud flow logs. But there's a bunch of other use cases in capacity planning. There's like are my bandwidth, my throughput on some switches are getting to their limit. Do I really need new hardware, or do I need better usage policies, or is there something else in my environment going on? We've had a customer not too long ago who had that capacity planning issue where basically like they've already planned to purchase a bunch of new hardware, and once we've deployed ElastiFlow to really do some more capacity modeling and some cost planning there, we figured out, well, a bunch of their clients were actually being used as part of a botnet, and that is why there was a bunch of traffic going on there. So once we shut that down and were able to validate through ElastiFlow that these clients were no longer affected, the traffic actually normalized a good bit, and they could push off some of those hardware purchases to make sure because the bandwidth usage was just that much lower. So those are all kind of things that could happen in terms of use cases of things of additional visibility that you get from your flow data. And then of course, like growing interest over the last year or two, as different network teams were more tasked with security use cases. And then also on the other side, as more security teams realized the need for NetFlow data as part of the log collection they do for their SIEM, for their SOAR applications. Yeah, security uses is like who is actually accessing a service? Is there something that should be restricted? Am I compliant with all with all compliance rules that I have internally or from external frameworks, right? For example, there might be an internal policy that currently we don't accept new users from Iran or North Korea, make some examples, right? So we have an easy way on our GeoIP dashboard to actually see, has that been the case? Has there any sessions that have been established that come from these countries, right? all of those things and many, many more. Obviously, when we're talking security, we're talking anomaly detection, rare traffic events, data exfiltrations, all of that. We actually have machine learning jobs for to be able to see those. And again, it's the same, like the same machine learning jobs will work if you're collecting data, flow data from your on-prem devices, or if you're collecting those from your cloud services. And here's just again a really quick overview slash architecture slide, right? We really ElastiFlow really specializes in bringing in any kind of log sources from your access points, from your routers, from your firewalls, from VNets, from VPCs, from transit gateways, bunch of different sources. We push them through our data pipeline, enrich them with a bunch of different things with your own business context, with thread information, with GIP information, with AS information, to make them more valuable. Because the what we see is the more data we enrich, obviously, flow records with, the more dashboards we can populate, the more use cases our users can use ElastiFlow for to figure out different things around their network. And then the other big part, it's not really the topic of this webinar, so I'm not going to go into much detail, but the other thing we strongly believe in is that a tool is only as good as it allows data sovereignty for its different users, as well as it allows data aggregation. And so would be basically one of the first questions when people come into our door is like, which data platforms are you or are other tools, teams in your company? What data platform do they use? And is there an opportunity for some data aggregation that can happen so that we can have more teams look at more aggregated data and get better insights? Yeah, on the enrichment side, I've already mentioned it, right? I mean, a pure flow record might not tell you much at the top here, right? It tells you source IP, destination IP, port, protocol, and those kind of things. Um, all the things that we enrich, and that's only like a small subset of them, just makes them so much more valuable. Like if you figure out what can you really glean from this first line there is what you get when you have like a raw flow log, right? With all of that additional information, that's really where the benefit comes in of you making that data useful and valuable. For Azure traffic monitoring specifically, so we have a couple of people who have reached out to us who basically said like, hey, we're using NSG flow logs right now, which are basically, I would say, like similar to firewall logs. And that also means their use cases are limited to what you usually use firewall logs for. So I mean, they get you obviously the policies, they get you what is accepted and what is denied in terms of traffic in your environment, but that's really it, right? So, which is why NSG flow logs actually have been deprecated by Microsoft. And while the deprecation date is some way out, I think it's in 2027, the date you should really care about is that no new NSG flow logs can be created starting in June 2025, which is like 3 months from now, right? So we really to make sure, I mean, I'm sure your cloud ops teams or your NetOps teams themselves, they will create new virtual networks in Azure continuously, right? It's not a static environment. And so if you're relying on NSG flow logs to monitor those, you really need to make sure to switch to a solution that allows for VNet flow logs basically immediately, because I mean, while your old ones might still be running past 2025, if you have a new virtual network you want to or a new virtual firewall, you want to monitor that as well. You will not have the option to do NSG flow logs anymore, which obviously is a very critical piece of observability that you will be missing if all your observability tool can ingest is NSG flow logs. So obviously Microsoft has been working a while on VNet flow logs. It was like in a typical Azure manner, it was in technology preview for like 4 years or so before it was actually like publicly released or officially released. So that has been happening now. We are And now we have actual flow logs from those VNets, which are just yeah, allowing us to see a much wider view of all traffic that is passing through that VNet, not just like the accepted or rejected traffic and one network security group. And obviously that enhances those flow logs from specific policy firewall ones to, let's see, all network traffic that actually goes through those VNets. And then that also allows all those use cases that I mentioned earlier on my 3 use case slides here. They are now possible with Azure VNets. So the time to switch, if you're relying on energy flow logs, really is now. So, I mean, the call to action, if you don't take anything away, if you're currently monitoring your Azure network with energy flow logs, have a plan to move off of them, reevaluate how you're currently, what solution you're currently using, make sure they can actually allow for VNet flow monitoring. And yeah, it's time to start collecting those VNet flow logs if you don't do that already. With that, we'll get to our second poll here, the quick time check. Okay, we're looking good. So what is your involvement in moving applications or services to, or more recently, actually from the cloud, right? We've had so much time we spent in moving things to the cloud, and we've seen more and more, yeah, publicly. I think what's the I'm blanking on the name right now. The company who very publicly moved all their assets from cloud back into on-prem and published their Basecamp. Yeah, Basecamp did that. Published very yeah, excitedly their cost savings of just buying servers and not running their workload in AWS. I think it was in their case. So yeah, so just want to make sure again that we're gonna go jump into a demo, talk a little bit about cloud migration, what the planning and the validation process is. So I just want to make sure we dive into the right level of detail there. It seems like most people here are either involved throughout most of the process, including planning and post-migration validation, or even leading those migrations themselves, which is perfect. That's exactly the card that we wanted for this demo. So I'm going to end this poll here and quickly share the results. But basically, it's either answer 2 or answer 3 has been picked here, which is, yeah, again, exactly what we thought our crowd for this webinar would be. So that makes perfect sense. With this, let's jump into this quick demo around cloud migration planning and validation. So what we're going to see in this demo is basically we're going to have an application. I'm just going to pick one on our demo server that runs locally in our demo environment right now. And I just want to go through a couple of things where you can see how different planning decisions can be guided by collecting NetFlow data. And then in the same way, I'm going to show past the actual migration, like how then using Cloud Flow Logs basically can be used to validate that actually the same connectivity has been established post migration of our application. So with that, I'm gonna switch over. Bear with me for a second, and I'm actually gonna remove my filters to have a clean start here, and I'll just start with the overview dashboard. Perfect. So this is our demo environment that runs in Boston. Basically, it looks at a bunch of traffic that is produced just like in-office traffic. So basically, if one of our sales guys is currently on Instagram or whatever, instead of actually working, we would see that in the flow records here. I'm not going to show that right now. I don't want to like out anyone here, but we're going to look at just some application usage. And usually, what we do here is typically we start in the top N, and then I can just like look at the top applications that actually have been used in my environment here. And since I want to look at a little bit broader usage patterns, we actually I'm going to filter on the last 7 days here. And so what you can clearly see, like we're in the middle of Wednesday, we had some Tuesday and some Monday traffic, then we had almost nothing or very little over the weekend, and this is last Friday, Friday and Thursday here. There's not much going on Friday. almost seemed like it was a holiday, but never mind. That's not the point of this here right now. One thing that you've seen, if you're not used to ElastiFlow, and if you're used to other solutions, so I can set a time horizon here of the lab past 7 days of flow data, and you actually see this dashboard loaded up super quickly, gives me all the information I need. And so, yeah, that's one of the things we pride ourselves in by leveraging Elasticsearch, by leveraging Kibana. We actually have the ability to have yeah, blazing fast dashboards that allow deep analytics and deep explorability. The application, let's do some meta stuff here. The application, I actually want to shift to the cloud. We're just going to use Kibana. So it is actually this dashboard that I'm using right now, a session that I have established right now that we're seeing here. Let's just pretend we want to use this application and push it to the cloud. And actually, I can actually get some more time here to make this a little bit more realistic. Let's look at the last 2 weeks of usage. Someone, I guess, restarted the demo environment here. So we only have data of the last 10 days, which is perfectly fine here. And we're just going to see, okay, how much total traffic are we incurring in this application, right? So that allows us to do a bunch of load planning, instance capacity planning, throughput planning, right? So basically we see our daily usage patterns here. And some of the questions that might be on your mind is very broadly is like, I mean, which region should I put this application in my cloud, right? So one way we can figure that out is we actually go to our GUIP dashboard and we see currently it's hosted in Boston. That's why all of those connections end here. But we also see like over the last 14 days or the last 10 days that we have data here right now, the usage was mostly spread either, I mean, we had someone from Chile coming in here. But most of the time it was spread like evenly across the US, a little bit less actually to the West Coast. So maybe the US East region one on AWS, for example, is something I would choose for this application. Obviously, for each of those streams, you see exactly like how large the session was. You can filter in by time zone, for example. We could basically say like, okay, show me only all traffic in the West Coast time zone, and then we can see exactly, okay, how many megabytes, how many gigabytes of traffic came from this time zone to make sure that I can do further cost and efficiency planning of maybe should I deploy this application in two regions, right? To make sure I keep latency and costs low or something like that, right? All of those things we can see here, for example, the GIP dashboard. We can see total traffic of throughput that, for example, of our internet-facing routers and firewalls here that actually exported as flow data. Obviously, it's very minor for our little Kibana demo server usage, but as you can see, you basically see exactly usage patterns. You can see like, okay, are there some major spikes that I need to provide or think about providing throughput for, or is it a pretty even load distribution that I have throughout my work week, for example? So all of those things you can do by just looking at current data. You can look at the metrics. We can look at details. I could pull all of those up. Maybe the last thing I'm going to show here is the flows, which actually shows me exactly where some of these flows are coming from. I don't get any data here right now, which is interesting. Oh, because there is an Azure filter set. Okay, I don't want that, of course. So let me just filter by Kibana again. So here we have all of these different hosts or all of these different clients basically accessing our Kibana server. One thing that might be interesting for me is if I go to source destination, and again, actually apply my Kibana filter. One thing I will see is exactly what ports are leveraged to make this application happen, which obviously for Kibana, once I've established a session, it's going to use one of those high TCP ports. But I can basically use that on a per client basis, and I can filter in as well. I can click on here, and then I see all the ports that basically have been used from this client to access Kibana servers. And one of them, I'm not sure actually which one it is right now, but one of them will be my IP address of this session that we're in right now because we're doing real-time monitoring here. So basically, that allows me to see like, okay, if I'm configuring a network security group, for example, which ports would need to be open in which direction to make my application run. Obviously, Kibana is a super simple example here. It basically only needs access to Elasticsearch in the backend, and obviously clients need to be able to access it. But as your application gets more complicated, right, you can see how you really want to capture those flows and make sure you just have a head start in terms of planning your migration of this application to the cloud because you have full visibility of what is required to make this application run. Um, and so when we're looking at this, we can also take snapshots of this. We can use the reporting functionality of Kibana to make sure we can export any of the things, any of the visualizations that we have here. And what we've done in the past is basically we've exported the usage, be it table-based, be it visualization-based of this current application, and basically see like which connections need to be open, which kind of traffic needs to happen. And then if we're actually moving this application into the cloud, or other scenario would be out of the cloud, doesn't matter the direction here, we can actually compare these usage patterns with what we see after the migration, and can then very easily see, oh, is there something missing? We can use the session established flag, false or true, to see like, are there any sessions that used to be able to be established that are now not being established, or do we have a spike in sessions that will not be able to establish, right? That would lead to something, maybe some misconfiguration on some firewall rule, maybe some policy that was not quite set right, to see exactly post-migration, yeah, does everything work as expected, or is there anything else that needs to happen, anything that needs to be configured, any more resources that need to be given, maybe some from somewhere around the world, people now experience Kibana as being slower, right? This is something that we could look at here. Filter, again, go back to our GeoIP, filter where are those people accessing from, and then look exactly at the traffic details to see what's going on there, which route they're taking, and what could be the potential issue. Okay, with that, I think I saw some questions pop up. Let me see if I can actually like get those answered before we jump into the next use case. Let me start the slideshow here again. I think I can open the chat here. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we have a question. Can you drill down the flow by interface on a device, or is it all IPFix NetFlow pulled together? Great question from Jeff here. Absolutely. I can go back real quick here and actually show that. So on our exporters dashboard, that's exactly where you would do that. So you could specify, for example, here we got some VNet traffic actually from Azure coming in here, so I could select that. But here is our main router in Boston in the demo environment, if I remember correctly. And here you can see exactly, okay, here's the interface I can choose. Here's the ingress interface I can choose. So I can click exactly into this. Now I have only this device, only this interface, and those filters are all sticky. So now I can go back to GeoIP and see like, okay, where did connections in general come from that were for this router. I can go to core services and see like, okay, what kind of DNS traffic, DHCP traffic, and so on did I see in this router? I can go to the top end and see which applications with services, what kind of flow conversations have been happening on this specific interface. So absolutely, any filters that you can set in our dashboards, they're all cumulative, they're all sticky, and allow you to start broad and then filter in, trickle in into specifically the traffic that you want to see, and then still have that traffic available throughout all the visualizations we offer. Thank you for the question. That was a good question. Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat. So with that, I think I'll move on. So we have one more poll question here, which is a fun one, because I'm sure there's widely different responses here. How predictable are your cloud egress costs currently? While you predictable but way too high seems to be the front runner so far. I can definitely relate to that. I think we have some time. I can actually go through a quick story before I jump into the demo, which is actually couple of you may have used and may know about this already. Last year, for Cisco Live in Las Vegas at the time, we've launched our NetIntel threat intelligence service or network intelligence service. And basically, what that does is we have this a ton of global sensors that basically are open to everything. They're being attacked. There's brute force. There's all kinds of things going on there. Um, and with that, we're actually using that flow data to analyze attack behavior, to analyze and to map them to MITRE ATT&CK frameworks, which we then collect in a database and allow you to enrich your own flow records with that. So that's what NetIntel does. Basically, when we see suspicious traffic patterns, when we see traffic from a specific external system that also, yeah, was reaching out to one of our sensors, we basically say like, oh, when this IP address reached out to one of our sensors, they did some recon activity, then they did some brute force attacks, and this is what's happening. This is when it was. This is the MITRE ATT&CK technique or sub techniques they were using. So all of that is happening. And yes, thank you, Carla, for ending the poll. So we see like basically everyone said predictable but way too high. You just, yeah, definitely expected. But yeah, back to my story. So we have this NetIntel service, but we do with ElastiFlow and our collectors, we do high scale enrichment. So we have customers running this on 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 events or flows per second, right? Not per minute, but per second. Um, so we are running in some of the larger environments and larger network environments that are out there. And as you can imagine, if you want to enrich any data at that velocity, you basically need to have that data co-located in memory to even have a chance to do that many lookups and to do that much enrichment at that scale. You can't just like do 500,000 API calls per second for some enrichment source, right? You'll DDoS anything or you DOS anything that is on the other hand, and they will hopefully have some DOS protection and shut down your access right away. Um, so this is why our NetIntel database, our threat database that also has all the application information, ASN information, stuff like that, we are allowing people to download that right where our NetObserve collector is located. And that data, we have that hosted in GCP, our NetIntel database. And as this grew larger and as the database grew larger and as our customer pool grew larger, this actually had a pretty significant impact for us for our cloud egress costs, which was still manageable and still expected, like we predicted. Okay, with that adoption, with that increase of database, this is how much egress costs we would incur. What we didn't foresee, though, is at some point we had a couple of prospects or maybe even users using ElastiFlow as a free trial. They had their collector instance running, but misconfigured, which then caused a panic in the collector and caused it to restart. But the panic in the collector was after the part in the code where it downloaded our NetIntel database. So basically, what happened is a collector started, downloaded our database, panic crashed because some configuration was wrong, restarted, and then reached out to the database again and downloaded it again. And so we had our cloud egress cost spike from like a couple of $100 a month basically for those NetIntel downloads to I think the prediction was like 40, $50,000, like a 20x at least increase in our cloud egress costs, just because a couple people were running collectors that kept restarting and kept downloading that NetIntel database. And so with that, we actually had to use yeah, in this case we didn't have GCP flow logs yet, which I'll get to in a second, that they're actually like very close on our roadmap and close to be released as well. But since that was hosted on GCP, we couldn't use ElastiFlow itself to figure out who's causing those egress costs, what can we best do about them. So we really felt the pain basically of having that visibility gap on our cloud systems, which is why we actually like moved forward and had more prioritized efforts on the roadmap to do Azure Flow Logs, which we just released, and then GCP Flow Logs, which will come soon after, to help ourselves basically manage our own NetIntel environment and make sure we have this standardized view of Flow Logs there. I'm sorry, there was a bit of a longer tangent there, but I thought it was just yeah, important to share like some real life feedback of like, yeah, we really would have needed ElastiFlow to make sure we have more predictability, and an easier way to yeah, tame our cloud egress costs and see who's causing them. With that though, we are actually going to start our demo here for cloud egress costs. And in this demo, I will just show, first of all, here's some data that we're ingesting from our VNet flow logs that we have in a demo environment. We're going to see just what that looks like in general. We're going to see that basically all dashboards are just as usable with Azure data as they are with on-prem data or AWS or GCP data for that matter. You can do the same things with them. And then towards the end, I'm just going to show like a little bit of a custom dashboard that basically just like shows the opportunity of the what's possible if you want to do a little bit more a tighter cost control monitoring in Kibana. With that, I once again jump over into my demo environment. And so it's the same one. We have the same session still open. I'm going to change a couple of different things. So for this case, I'm actually just going to use like the last day of data or so to make sure we have enough, but also some good data. And as I said earlier, right, an easy way for me to filter by only VNet flow log data, for example, is I can just choose the specific VNet I want to see data from. And now I see there's not so much data here. So let me go back and make this interval a little bit bigger. And we still don't have any data. So that's very interesting. I need to make sure I have my filter set correctly. And if nothing else, I'm just going to jump on a different demo environment where I know I have that data. I think I'm going to do that. Um, okay, so here what we can clearly see is we're collecting Azure VNet data, and this is something that I wanted to show at the end, but in this case, we're just going to start with it, is this is not a dashboard that is part of our published set of dashboards yet, but it's just like it gives you an idea of what could be possible with that data that we have here, right? So we could actually have like the egress cost per day by tagging metadata information. That's something I didn't really do a lot of justice here in this webinar, but basically I think we have a whole different webinar where we talk about like different enrichment sources that you can do with your flow records. And one of those enrichment sources is you can just tag any flow that, for example, fulfills certain requirements, you can tag that with like an egress cost in this case, for example. And since we have that and we know what 1 GB costs here, for example, we can actually look at for this specific VNet, what would be our estimated egress cost on a per month basis? What is the total data that we pushed there? And then also where did that flow from, right? We see I selected my VNet 1 with Azure data. And then we have yeah, different clients that with different services connect to different servers, right? All from this VNet. So that's something that you could do, and then you can also use different visualizations, right? In terms of like egress cost per source per minute, right? We can look at the top internal source IPs, right? So this is all data that you have. These are visualizations. A lot of these visualizations are actually part of our open source dashboards that we have available for you. But you can also click and like drag and drop and click together your own dashboard of things that you are really interested in seeing. And that could be something where you just have a label with some calculation in the back, and it basically says like, oh, this is my cost per gigabyte. Just estimate for me what might be the cost on a per month basis here, right? So that is part of the big flexibility that we're preaching here is while we have a lot of dashboards that come out of the box, it is very easy in Kibana, and we can assist to some degree there as well, to build your own dashboard to really use our data to publish those, to populate those, but also the other data sources, right? If you have, I don't know, if you have some application logs that you're also storing in Elastic that show you what kind of users cost certain data to be transferred, for example, you could also aggregate that here and show that in the same dashboard. And that's really the power of this open data platform that we are using. I'm going back to my original screen here for a second though, and I still want to just see that I can show some actual data here. Okay, so this is showing up. So what I'm going to do is just gonna see that I'm gonna tag my Azure traffic again. And we have some here. Perfect. Okay, they might have just come from a different exporter then. The other thing that I want to show here, and you kind of picked up on it already in what I've been doing here. So I've not specified what I want to see here, right? I mean, we have all these Azure fields here, but we actually have a free text search in Kibana across all of our dashboards and across all of our data, right? So I can basically just enter in any dashboard, I can just free text enter Azure, and basically I see any data that actually has been tagged with Azure. This is for my flow log dashboard here now, but I can also do that for my source destination dashboard. And these filters are some of them they are sticky. Some of them you can do on a per dashboard basis, right? It is really based on your preference of what you want to do. And here we see all the Azure traffic that happens in on a source destination basis. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to show here is while we obviously see like where data flows in through our Azure environment, we can easily click into that. We can easily show all of it again. We can see like how much data has actually been flowing through Azure, and therefore looking at just like yeah, how much data is being used, which region is it sent to, therefore what is my egress cost of that traffic, right? So you can see all of that. But yeah, you can also just use free text filters as I used Azure and Kibana. We could use maybe I'll do that once again. Okay, we have no Instagram users right now, so that's awesome. At least in the last couple days here. Yeah, so you can really use the free text filter to search through your data as well as use those sticky filters that we have in our dashboards. Um, and that's really the gist of what I wanted to show in this webinar is we want to make sure we have that visibility in the cloud, and we want to make sure we have it available in the same way as we do our normal data as well, our on-prem data as well. You see all the benefits here, right? With having the data in there, I can now do end-to-end forensics again, like where did traffic go, where did it end, I don't need to know, I don't need to mind here really if that is specifically from a cloud address or not, if it's from coming from a VNet or routed through a router. I just see it all here and I can get all the informations in one place. Okay, with that, I'm gonna go back to my slides here and we're gonna jump into Q&A in a second. But I just wanted to one time reiterate the key benefits here, right? We're looking at monitoring on-prem and cloud data in a single pane of glass. I hope you all know how important that is, but I've definitely switched shared between programs in my past, and it's not been fun to be able to like manually try to correlate some data. Oh, I've seen this here, I've seen this here, or maybe this is the same, maybe this is different traffic. So being able to do that is just like a much better solution than if I were to say if I use for Azure specifically, I use Azure Network Watcher for my cloud traffic, but I use something else for my on-prem traffic. It causes more problems, longer time to resolve issues. Which brings me to the next point, faster troubleshooting, right? I think we can all understand the more enriched insights we have, the quicker it is to troubleshoot. And then the other part of that is also the more correlated, enriched data we have, the better our automatic alerts are, the better is the merging of automated alerts to say like, okay, I have these 5 alerts, they probably all have the same root cause, right? Um, and yeah, I can see all the data, all the use cases that I want to have, that I already know for on-prem monitoring. I can move those to the cloud. Specifically, though, cloud migration insight, cloud egress cost optimization, those are things obviously that are great use cases, great reasons to add Azure Flow Log or any other cloud flow log into the repertoire of flow logs you're collecting. And with that, we also have a future-proof solution here, right? By being able to move from energy flow logs to Azure VNet flow logs. It future-proofs the amount of visibility that you get, but also just future-proofs that you're not falling into a visibility gap of no new NSG flow logs being able to be created. With that, let's jump into the Q&A and color. I'm not sure. I never see the question section. I do
Um,
see one
Actually,
question from. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we did get one question from Jeff. I can see it here in the chat. Oh, it looks like Dennis who answered it, but he
Oh, I see that one here is net intel included. So yeah, a bit of a nuanced answer here. So net intel, there's basically two versions of net intel, two versions of the dataset we're sending. And the first version is basically basic threat information. So by the way, your network has been accessed by someone who in the past we know has run brute force attacks, for example. So you will actually see that included in ElastiFlow Net Observe. Even in our free version, in our basic license, you will get that threat information to basically, yeah, see what is going on there. But in our two-tier model, excuse me, NetIntel with a premium license, you actually get a bunch more information. You get the threat score, the MITRE attack framework mapping. You get the all the ASN information that we have additionally to what MaxMind has found, for example. You get all the application enrichment. I didn't really go into that in detail in this webinar, but you saw me just type Kibana, you saw me to type Instagram, right? This is application enrichment information that also comes from NetIntel, and also that is only available with the premium license. So basic threats, yes, for free. Everything else, you will need premium.
Thank you for going through the details. We do have one more question, which is we currently use NSG flow logs. How can we transition to the new ones?
Currently using NSG logs. Awesome. First of all, kudos. It's great that you're measuring that you're monitoring flow logs. That's really good. So I mean, there's a couple of different things, obviously, depending on mostly what solution you're currently using to monitor NSG flow logs. We've definitely seen some solutions out there that support NSG, but do not, at least not yet, support Azure VNet flow logs. For those, I mean, my first advice would be to just like reach out to your current tool provider for NSG flow logs and just ask them like, hey, what is the migration plan? How and when can I move on to Azure VNet flow logs? And if their answer is anything less, but like, yeah, we have that ready for you at least in the next month or two, or here's how you do it already. That's definitely where I would say like your alarm bells should go off because of the impeding depreciation of or deprecation of energy flow logs. And then it might be the time to look for another tool. If you're looking to move to ElastiFlow, for example, obviously, as you saw in this webinar, we do support Azure VNet Flow Logs. What that usually looks like is actually quite simple because, I mean, all your on-prem devices, for example, they already send flow data to a specific IP address, right, on a specific port. And so it would actually, what we usually do with customers in a migration environment of using our tool instead, we're basically just like routing that traffic over to an instance of our collector, and basically then making sure customers have that visibility. So there's no need to change all of your devices config to basically send flow log somewhere else now. So the transition there is quite smooth. And on the Azure VNet side, just to get into some detail of how that works, is we're setting up, obviously, you will need to set up Azure VNet flow logs. Basically, instead of NSG flow logs, if you have them currently enabled, it's basically the same way you're doing that. You're just selecting VNet instead of NSG. What we also have is an extensive guide on our docs page on first of all, how to do that, but then also on how to set up an event hub and connect that to your ElastiFlow collector instance. And what that means by us going through Event Hub is actually it's a really neat solution because we're only actually reaching out and pulling new flow logs from your Azure storage account when there's actually something to collect. So we're not like constantly polling, hey, do you have new data? Do you have new data for us? We actually do that in real time when new flow log data is available there. So yeah, that would be a transition plan if you happen to choose to transition to ElastiFlow. And then I actually now I see it color, so thank you for being patient
Okay, we
there.
have room for two more questions. So there's one question. If anyone has any like last minute questions that come up, please feel free to ask us now. Or If you don't, there's always the sales at ElastiFlow or even Alex's email right here if you want to copy it and reach out to him directly. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think I see one more question open here. We monitor Azure and AWS Flow logs. How can I combine visibility for both? First of all, a great question, and kudos to you too for monitoring both. That's definitely brings you into, I would say, the top 10, if not the top 5% of network teams actually monitoring Cloudflare logs. That's really awesome. If I mean most tools I think that actually support Azure and AWS Flow logs and let me say many of them actually allow you to see their data in the same report or in the same dashboard. Some people have like a cloud dashboard. Some people have specific reports around Azure and AWS. How it works in our solution is, I mean, should not come as a surprise to you. It basically they both show up as on-prem data, and all dashboards that we have are actually populated by Azure as well as AWS Flow logs. So basically, like when you're looking through your dashboard, when you're doing some analysis, when you start applying filters, right? If you don't apply specific filters for your AWS or for Azure traffic, all of that will just be visible if it matches the filter criteria that you have set. Obviously, as I've just done, you can just type in Azure, type in AWS to basically have that specifically happen in your environment to filter only by that and just add that as a filter. You can do that on a per specific VNet or on a per specific VPC basis if you want to filter by that. But yeah, that happens seamlessly, right? I think I actually now that I think about it, in my demo environment that I just used for showing that, AWS data was also flowing in there because we have that set up as well. So you intrinsically saw Azure and AWS data in the dashboards that I've shown based on the filters that I've applied.
Thank you, Alex. It looks like we're all set with questions and we can move to the final slide.
Awesome. Cool. With that, then, I think doing one more time check. Great. We got 4 minutes left. Thank you all for attending. I hope this was helpful. Again, reach out to me if you have any further questions, anything you want to discuss. I'm always happy to jump on a quick call and give like a specific demo as well on something that you really care about. Other ways to get involved, though, always great to join our Slack community. We have like, I think 1,700 people now on the Slack community. To the point where some community members outside of us just answer questions and are being super helpful, which is just fantastic to see. Um, Obviously, you can get a free 1 year basic license to get started with NetObserve and NetIntel. Basic license for most use cases, especially like in home and smaller networks, that's actually sufficient. I always like to say like more people in the world use ElastiFlow for free than we actually have paid customer, which I think is fantastic because we have this open source route anyway, and we want to stay as close to our community as possible. So yeah, if you fall under that category, definitely go for the free license and uh, continue using it. We have no plans on our side to make that a paid version anytime soon. We're trying to have that free version around for as long as we can to make sure we support your use cases there. If that 1 year basic license does not suffice for your use case, or if you want to reach out in for any other reason, reach out to our sales at elastflow.com email address, schedule a demo, get more info, all the good stuff there. Carla mentioned after this webinar, there's going to be a quick survey that you can fill out. And one of the questions in there is actually something in the terms of like, hey, are you interested in getting early access to our GCP flow logs feature, which we're going to release soon? If that's at all interesting, if you have some GCP environment that you'd like to monitor, just click a yes there. And then I'll specifically follow up with you to look at release dates, to maybe look at, do you have a test environment, a demo environment that we might be able to use for like an early access test where you can then actually give us feedback before the final release. We're always looking for like these kind of technology partnerships where we can or beta programs. We always love to get your feedback before we actually blast it out in the wild and see something wrong with it. So that's always super helpful and usually a really good time for everyone involved. I think that's all my slides. Yeah, again, thank you so much for attending, and I'll see you next time.